Hey everyone, and welcome to Ask Daniel number 63 here.
Hey, everybody.
Mike and I, we were just talking about how you have your dogs with you, huh?
I do have my dogs, yeah. So they're off screen. Hopefully they'll stay off screen. We'll see how it goes.
Very cool. Well, I think last time or a couple of times, we've actually done very well on time. So I've actually four questions here to go over today. I think hopefully we'll bring in
Great.
a lot of value.
Great.
And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Before, I wanted to make a little quick announcement here to everyone tuning in that, what we share a little bit of what we talked about, Mike, and maybe something I didn't even talk to you about, which was a little bit like I have this like kind of slight change in vision here for the school, meaning I'm starting to think of it this way, that every single person who's tuning in here, who's a subscriber, who listens to the podcast, who follows us on Twitter, etc., is already a student.
Pretty much,
Okay?
yeah. Yeah.
So that's we are already have this student body, and you and I are teaching, which by the way means that as a teacher, you're kind of like 80% teacher, 20% student, because you learn from your students too, and the student is like part of the learning process too. But thinking of it that way, that everybody is already a student. And then for those who want to deepen their knowledge, further their studies, well, then you can sign up for more formal teaching, where there's a curriculum and planned classes, etc., and something like that. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the subscribers and everyone, you're already learning. You're already on your way, and then the school can just add to that. So yeah. It's great. It's
so it's kind of, we have this like open free class for everyone. Everyone is already a student, but if you want to deepen your knowledge, you can sign up, etc. So I think it'll be really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that said, let's jump in here and answer some questions. I'm going to share the screen here. Chrome tab. I called it questions. I guess I did. Yeah, I did. Okay. So this first one is actually a comment on episode 326 that I thought there was a lot of really valuable things to talk about here. So let's read it and then get into it. Hi, Daniel. I've been really struggling to get that heavy eye, wanting to sleep feeling, especially without sleeping meds. Is this something related to anxiety and crowded thoughts? I've been trying to keep active in the day despite being so exhausted and unmotivated, and have been trying to unwind and do relaxing, enjoyable activities before bed, but still really struggling to fall to sleep, as well as waking up numerous times, but more so getting to sleep. Would you have any more tips? I may very well enroll in your course soon. We would, I already answered that last question there, but okay. So we have kind of two questions, like struggling with that heavy feeling, and is that related to anxiety, crowded thoughts, and also been trying to keep active during the day hasn't really seemed to help. What are your immediate thoughts when you hear this, Mike?
Well, I think a couple things come to mind. One, which is kind of a big thing with me, is that I think people with insomnia often they forget what it feels like to be truly sleepy. They kind of, they don't perceive it. They've lost that ability to perceive it really well. So that's kind of the first thing. And the second thing is to remember, if you're doing kind of a CBTI program, the goal isn't to sleep more initially. Initially, the goal is to sleep more efficiently. So what that means is that with a little bit of kind of that short-term pain, you can, you can get the long-term gain. You allow your natural sleep drive to build, and as soon as you get one night where everything kind of clicks, then usually the confidence just really spikes after that night. And so I think that's kind of the goal. So you have to be patient, and you got to kind of hang in there, and the natural sleepiness will come. I mean, it's a homeostatic drive. It builds naturally. There's nothing you can't stop it really. It's just, if you allow it to build, it will build. And then allowing yourself to perceive the sleepiness, which is one of the reasons why maybe we differ a little on this. I'm not a big proponent of like the TV until you're truly sleepy. I'm just not. That's just not what I feel is the best approach for when I'm doing coaching with someone. But everyone's different. Different things will work for different people. But I feel like perceiving sleepiness before you go to bed is really important, and it can kind of be learned. You have to kind of like learn how to recognize those signs of true sleepiness, which is more than tired. You know, tired and exhausted is more of like a physical feeling, as opposed to sleepy, which is more like a mental kind of state or feeling that you get.
Exactly. And I think, and it seems like actually, is it Matthew? Was, I'm starting to get that heavy eye feeling. So I think that's, Matthew is onto that. Like the feeling of sleepy is, right? Your eyelids kind of feel heavy. You have that urge to sleep. You want to sleep. And
Right.
the thing I've thought a lot about lately is how when you have trouble sleeping, when you have insomnia, it can often seem like the sleeplessness is gone, or something that you commonly hear is like, I feel really sleepy, but my sleepiness evaporates.
Yep.
And what in reality happens, correct me if you have a different thought here, Mike, but what I think is that it's like the sleepiness is still there, the sleep drive is still there, but it gets masked by the hyperarousal. You get so kind of nervous or worried that you don't feel the sleepiness anymore, and it seems like the sleepiness disappeared, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's I use the word dissipates. You know, we all kind of have a word. It's like, what happens when you get super sleepy or you're falling asleep, and then you go to bed and you just 30 seconds later you're just staring at the ceiling. I like to ask the question, like, what logical thing would cause that? There isn't a logical thing that would cause that. But when you understand a little bit about sleep physiology and just conditioning and that kind of stuff, it's kind of thought to be a conditioned response. It's thought to be, you put yourself in a situation that you associate with being really alert, like with effort and frustration and anxiety and any word you want to fill in there. You're in that situation now. You know, it's sort of like some people, like a lot of people don't like to go into the doctor's office because they think they're going to get a shot, or, you know, they're going to get bad news. So they get anxious. You know, they could be really, really relaxed and calm. Then they get in their car and they're a little kind of worked out, and they get in the parking lot and they're checking in, and the anxiety's kind of like building and building. And then they're in the exam room and they're kind of like really, really tense. So, you know, you're a doctor, you know how that goes, you know. You see it firsthand. But that's, I think, the same kind of idea that happens with sleep. You know, you've experienced difficulty sleeping, frustration, long stretches of time trying to force sleep, and it's not gone well. And so now you're in that environment again, and that's, I think, what happens there with the evisceration of the sleepiness.
And so going back to what the question here, like, is this something related to anxiety and crowded thoughts? I would say the short answer is yes. It's not that the sleepiness goes away. It's that kind of the anxiety overpowers it and you don't notice it as much. Which then brings us to the second part of this one, which, where Matthew describes, I've been trying to keep active despite being exhausted, unmotivated. I've been trying to unwind. I've been trying to relax and do enjoyable things, but I still struggle to fall asleep. And by the way, I'm reading this. I know you probably already know what I'm going with that, Mike, but what are your thoughts on that one?
You want me to respond to that?
Yeah.
Well, so, when I hear I'm trying to be active in that, I'm trying to enjoy myself, I'm trying to do these things, I think the real sentence, what he means is, I'm trying to get to sleep by doing these things. It's sort of become not just enjoyment for enjoyment's sake. It's become, well, I know this is important for sleep, so I have to do this. And then then the walk in the park, the figurative walk in the park, enjoyable thing, becomes like, well, I need to do this to sleep. And so now it's like an effort. It's back to that sleep effort thing. It's like you have to, the last thing I think anyone should think about during the day is their sleep, because it gets the mind preoccupied. It kind of like, it's like lighter fluid on the campfire. It just kind of keeps the embers going there, where you don't want that during the day. You want to, like, it's like the stumbling on the pathway that you've talked about. That I love that analogy. You just get on with your day. You focus on the day, enjoyment. So don't give sleep any thought at all. Get really enjoying what you're doing. Get really into it. And then in the evening, just kind of allow yourself to, allow natural sleepiness to emerge. I like to say, it's like, you can't force it. You just have to allow it. You have to get out of the way mentally, and that's your best chance. But then there's always the caveat that natural sleep doesn't always happen easily. And I tell every client, I'm like, there's no guarantee you're going to sleep every night, but your odds of sleeping well go up as your confidence goes up. And confidence, back to what I was originally talking about when I first mentioned, was if you have one good night of sleep, sometimes that's enough to just springboard the confidence way up. And then sleep sort of doesn't become an issue anymore. You just sort of stop thinking about it. You stop focusing on it, and then it all happens easier.
Exactly. And so to Matthew here, as you're tuning in, I thought exactly the same thing, that when you're kind of exhausting yourself during the day, it's become an effort. You're kind of trying to make yourself sleep. And then just as Coach Michael says here, the key is to do things that are enjoyable for the sake of enjoyment, things you just like to do, so it keeps your mind off from sleep. And then the follow-up question to that often becomes, well, how do I do that? How do I keep myself from thinking about sleep? And I think that's the tricky part, but I think the key to that one is plain and simple education. I think it's demystification. It's like when you understand why you've had trouble sleeping and there's no mystery there, then you're ready to be like, okay, I can leave this alone. So exactly. I say, Matthew, I hope that helped. And please let us know if there's any follow-up questions to that one. And I think we have some real comments here, real life comments. I love that. So here's the first one. Michael says, Coach Dan, what are your thoughts on adding a group forum for your app? I found that so many people react positively to people who are in the same journey. Help me talk. This is a good one, and kind of makes me excited. I think the benefit with the group forum is that you can learn from others and you kind of share the journey. The tricky part with it is that if it's not properly supervised, it can lead to a lot of like comparing notes. I did this and lead you in a different direction. So for the app, for BedTyme, that's not something that's in the immediate future. But guess what? For the Sleep Coach School, we already have that. That. And I think that's going to be a real part of the school, that you can talk to other people and in addition to the classes. So I think definitely that's something we're going to have. We already have, actually.
Yeah, and I've done group sleep health kind of presentations and things over my life and my career, and I usually try to keep it focused on, implementing effective CBTI techniques. So not going off into weird tangents, but kind of like, do you understand the concept? How are you implementing it? And then people kind of share notes on how they implement it. And I think it's really important to kind of keep that framework in any kind of forum, or whether it's online or live presentation. It's like, you want to be talking about, there's a concept like, morning light exposure. I'm kind of a big believer. I think morning light is really helpful for all of our physiology, including sleep. I'm just a proponent of that. And so I try to encourage people to explore that, kind of like, get outside in the morning. It's really good for your everything, including sleep. And so how do people do that? Well, I sit by a window. Well, your windows are filtering some of the light that might be more helpful to you, the higher frequency stuff. Maybe don't wear dark sunglasses on when you go outside. Try to just be like natural environment for a little while in the morning. I think is really a good, healthy thing all the way around. And so people talk about, well, like, I like to drink my coffee. Well, drink it outside. I just try to come up with simple ways for people to implement. That's just one example, and it might not be the best example, but different ways of implementing the CBTI techniques. Oh, probably the biggest one would be like, well, what do you do if you get out of bed in the middle of the night? What am I supposed to do? That's kind of a classic one. So just simple suggestions. That's what people should be talking about. How to implement the techniques that have been shown to work.
And speaking of that, speaking of like kind of having group discussion or group like that, I think you and I, Mike, we have to start doing workshops. We have to do it. I think I've been thinking about a lot of that, just not executed on it. Having like, let's say, in 2 weeks, me and Michael, we're going to have a workshop on the gas and brake model, or on this thing, and like 2 hours, and like sign up here, blah blah blah. Like we just have to do that.
Like a really deep dive. Absolutely.
Yeah, deep dive.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
All right, James says, this really hit home for me. The feeling of sleepiness was something I haven't felt in a very long time until doing CBTI. Gives me confidence and faith in my body. I'm so happy when I hear that. Like, I'm sure you've heard it many times. Like the one where somebody goes, I feel sleepy. I feel sleepy for the first time. It's like the hyperarousal is coming down. You feel the sleepiness. That's so encouraging. And Donald says here, hyperarousal
Yeah.
masking
Yeah.
sleepiness. Classic one. That's so true.
Yep.
Very good.
Absolutely.
So let us move on to our next question here, which is from Karan, who, by the way, has done really well. And you and I think answered a question from Karan before,
I think
etc.
so.
So let's read this. Hello again. I hope you and your family are doing well. Thank you. We are. I want to first preface this email with another thank you for your help throughout our brief period of correspondence. Your help has made an immeasurable impact. I'm at a stage where I'm not at all thinking about sleep, and I can confidently tell you I have zero preoccupation. That's fantastic, and you've been part of that journey too, Michael. Anyway, I wanted to send you a brief email just to get some deeper clarification on some details that I've previously mentioned in some comments. My question is the following. How long does it take for a person following sleep restriction therapy to get to a point where they are feeling significantly sleepy around their fixed bedtime? I wanted to ask this question because I have been putting sleep restriction therapy into practice with a 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. window for a little over 2 weeks now, and I'm noticing that I still feel alert at midnight, like able to stay awake for many more hours. Just wanted some clarity on when exactly I would get to a point where I have significant sleep drive at this time. In addendum to this question, how long would you say it takes for these fixed sleep-wake times to have an effect on eliminating the sleep state misperception? I wanted to ask this because prior to any sleeping problem, I always remember feeling very tired around my bedtime and falling asleep easily, alongside waking up in the morning with no recollection of anything in between. And that is my ultimate goal for my sleep experiences. I'm sleeping a sufficient amount of hours, even with a misperception. I'm at the end of my road and would very much appreciate you guys on these last two factors. All right. I can kind of start on this one and say that what really, how should I start this? I want to say this, that whenever we are going through any type of journey, we always want to know when we're going to reach the destination, which is very natural. I like to use the example of, like, if anybody ever has been in a car trip with kids in the back seat, always, right? It's like 1 minute later, like,
how much longer? How much longer?
Like, I told you it's gonna be 2 hours, and then, like, are we there yet?
Yeah, yeah.
Which then, makes you think, oh my gosh, my kids don't have any patience. But the truth is, in my opinion, that we adults aren't that much difference. It's just that when somebody says 2 hours, we kind of know what that is, right? And so we can tell. Yeah. But we are the same. I want to know when my Amazon package is coming. I want to know, when my burger is going to be done. I want to know, because it feels like, because when we know, then the journey isn't that, I know it's going to take 2 hours. It's pretty easy to wait 2 hours. That's all right. Or even something long, like it's going to take 36 hours for a hamburger. Well, at least I know. So now I can just, so the desire is always there to know, when am I going to reach my destination? Which in normal circumstances make perfect sense. But when it comes to insomnia, things are very, very different. Because the act of forecasting, the act of trying to tell when you're going to get there, it has an impact on the journey. Meaning, the more you have, like, I think probably in 2 weeks I'm going to do well, then you're already building pressure. You're already having expectations. You're already forecasting. So, like, when it's been 1 week, you're like, it's been 1 week, but I still have 1 week to go, maybe. And then it's like, well, now it's been 13 days. Dang it, I'm not going to hit this target. It's been 2 weeks. No, I'm not getting there. Oh my gosh. And so the problem there is that, the thing is that the act of trying to forecast or expect or something like that always trips you up. So my first big thinking is that I know it's super hard, but the more you go into the direction of, like, it will take time. I know I'm going to get there at some point. I think you should have the full expectation of sleeping fantastic, but nobody knows when. That's kind of my first thinking of that one. Thoughts on that, Michael?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with all that. I think, sleep is one of those strange things in life that you can't control, and you can't force natural sleep. It happens. You don't make it happen. These kinds of things. And setting a time expectation on when, a certain sleep window is going to, quote unquote, start working, you can't, there's no way to know. There's just no way to know. We know a few things. We know sleep drive builds naturally. And if you restrict your window of opportunity, then if it's restricted a little more than you normally give yourself, then kind of logically, your sleep drive should be a little stronger on average each time, but there's no way to know exactly when everything's going to just kind of click. And a lot of it has to do what we were talking about with the previous email, was kind of like the sleep confidence thing. You just get a little confident in your sleep, and then you don't pay attention to when you have a good night, when you have a bad night. Like if someone asked me, like, how have you been sleeping for the last couple of weeks? I'd be like really, really hard pressed to answer that question. I don't really know. I don't know. I don't track anything. I just kind of like go through my routine, and then I feel okay during the day, and that's it. And so, I could get into the, I don't want to do this every episode, get into like not watching the clock at night, and kind of like ditch the time and all that kind of stuff. But I think just understanding that falling asleep is completely different than waking up. You don't set an alarm to fall asleep. You just do what you do your routine. And if you feel like your routine isn't working, maybe tweak it just a little bit. If it's been a while and you feel like you're confident in CBTI techniques and sleep isn't a big problem, you just want to kind of explore it a little bit. Like you feel like you're pretty well versed in all this. I don't feel like usually there's a problem with saying, well, I'm going to shave a half an hour off my sleep window for like 3 nights and just to kind of see how it goes for me. If you feel confident and, you're not just starting off on the journey and all that, I don't see any real problem with that for most clients that I work with. But the big picture is that there's no way to know. Like, there's no way to know when a behavioral modification is going to suddenly be like working all the time. You just have to you have to trust it. That's really what you have to do.
There's no way to know, but one thing is for sure: the more you're wanting to know, the more you're trying to know, then the longer you're going to take.
Yeah,
that is for sure. And so I want to say to you, Karan, here that I think Karan, I think you're squarely in forget it territory. Meaning, like, you're not preoccupied. You're having good days. You should totally just like go forward, enjoy your life, be happy, and guess what? The things will come to you. You will start feeling sleepy again. You will start having solid sleep again. Everything will go back. So, well done, Karan, and
keep up the good work. You're doing great.
But Melina is live with us. She's giving us a couple of high fives.
Hey, Melina.
She has a question.
Thank you.
I think let's answer this, both of us. So she says, have you had any experience having some insomnia in the past? And I get this question sometimes because people are like, why are you so interested in it? There must be a reason, like you probably had it before, etc. And I want to say that I definitely have periods where I have like periodic insomnia. Like I go through the classic thing where like, I know it's like, I haven't fallen asleep in like an hour and a half, and like, I know I should get out of bed, and then I do, and then etc. And I'm up. And what I do, the way my wife knows is that my clock, I don't know if I said this before, but my clock is like down. In the living room is like upside down in the morning because I don't know what time it is. I purposely don't want to, but I think the reason that, I guess before I really started getting interested in the field, I just was lucky not to have any real problems with sleep. But to be honest with you, I feel that at this point, I'm immune. I think I can have trouble sleeping for a night, 2 nights, stretched nights, but I don't think I can ever have what we call insomnia because I understand it. And the reason I'm saying this is not to be like, I don't know, brag or something like that. It's just to say my immunity comes from knowledge, and that knowledge is relatively easily, at least, it's definitely transferable. I can transfer that to somebody else. So yeah, I've definitely had nights where I sleep very little, but it's never like escalated to anything worse. But how about you, Mike?
I want to start with the last thing you said. Knowledge of sleep is really the key with all of this. The more you know about something, the less likely you are concerned about it. It's true with anything in life. It's sort of that fear of the unknown idea. So if you know a lot about sleep, you roll with it. Everyone has an occasional bad night. They just do. It could be you twisted your ankle during the day. Okay, so you're not going to sleep very well that night. Maybe a couple nights. Well, the key is not that you didn't sleep well for a couple nights. That's totally expected. But the key would be not letting it snowball into what we call chronic insomnia, where you start to adapt to it. You start to do certain things and don't do certain things that kind of affect your sleep in general, and then the pain starts to resolve, and then insomnia sticks around. So that's the key. The key is to learn to not let a night or two of bad sleep snowball into a big full-blown thing that's occupying your mind all the time.
But you're like, I know some like Sasha Stevens, the author of a great book I like, and our friend Martin, for them, the journey started with like, they had trouble sleeping themselves. I think for you, it was never like that either, right?
No, I started as a sleep tech, back in the 80s and all that. And polygraph machines, all this kind of stuff. And I was always kind of hyper somnolent. I was always one of those people that had trouble staying up late. Why I was a sleep tech, I have no idea, because it was always pretty hard for me. Probably drank way too much coffee to get me through. I just thought it was fascinating. And so, no, like I've never considered myself ever to have really struggled with insomnia, like where I like to use the phrase, took a life of its own, where it kind of kept going and I didn't know why. It's like, I know for a fact on any windy night, I'm not going to sleep very well. I just don't. I feel the air pressure and all that. But that's not insomnia really. That's like environmental sleep disruption or whatever, be like sleeping near an airport for the first time. You hear airplanes over and over, anything like that. That's not insomnia. So I recognize when, and sometimes I stay up late, I'll be working on something, go to bed. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning, something like that. I just know I'm gonna have a short night of sleep. I'm gonna feel really tired in the morning. I'm gonna take a nap after lunch the next day. Like, I just know. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I haven't really had trouble with that. I like to say actually that I'm not smart enough to have insomnia. I'm not a deep enough thinker, I just kind of roll with it. Anyways, for all you people that are smart enough to have insomnia, I understand as a former sleep tech, and I've been around the sleep field for so long. I know the struggle. I've talked to people. I've believe me, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in clinical settings. Yeah, I've picked up on what they're thinking, and I'll throw in a little dash of psychology background, and I kind of really into this stuff because it really does impact people, and it's often dismissed, in the medical community. Insomnia is kind of like, just change the pill, different pill, you'll be fine. And it's not right. I hope I answered your question.
No, that was great. And I have to stay on this topic for longer, which was like, when you say, when the wind pressure changes, I know I'm not going to sleep. Then immediately I'm thinking like, if it wasn't you, Mike, I would be like, this person has like some thoughts that they need to work on, maybe, perhaps. Like, is that really the case or not?
Yeah.
And I
like, am I setting myself up like windy and I start thinking about my sleep? I actually don't. I almost never think about my sleep. I can honestly say that I don't focus on the fact that it's windy. It maybe in the middle of the night I'll wake up and it like occurs to me that the house has been like rattling for a few hours.
Right.
And it's like, but it's like anything. Maybe the cat's yelling at me from the other room at middle of the night, or maybe you hear something from the neighbor. I mean, stuff like that can happen. And totally. But the windy night tends to not go away. It kind of sticks around for the whole night, kind of thing. And so that's just one little silly example.
It's super interesting because I have no reason to question that thought. But there was one time I was answering questions like I'm doing now, and somebody had this question like, can just a tiny little bit of alcohol disrupt your sleep? And then as I was answering that, my thinking was like, probably not. Like if you have a lot of alcohol, of course, but if it's just like a sip of wine, it's probably just the thought of it that's disrupting, not the wine itself. But as I was answering that question, I realized I have that same exact thought. I've not been drinking alcohol at all for like years because I believe that if I just have a little sip of beer, I'm not going to be able to sleep. And I'm like, it just maybe like, am I just making this up? It's just like, should I challenge that thought? Or I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah. We all kind of get these beliefs, and they can be really powerful. Which makes CBTI, coaching challenging sometimes because people are really strongly believe a certain thing. And, you can't just say, oh, that's not true. You just can't leave it at that. You have to kind of coach them through it, I guess. The best. And then,
which makes me, now we're going way off topic here. We have 2 more emails to answer.
Oh, sorry.
I think this is really interesting and important, which makes me think that there are kind of 2 ways of doing that. One is to like chat, you have this belief that is maybe not helpful to you and maybe not true. So you kind of challenge it like the classical CBT way and finding like evidence for or against it. Or then there is the kind of metacognitive thing where you're like, does it even matter? Like maybe I should just like step away from even trying to challenge it, or Which then I guess where I'm going with that is to say with the wind, like your wind thing and my alcohol thing, it's like, should we challenge it? Probably not. It's like just like sometimes just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that was
Yeah.
fun.
I
Okay.
think that's probably the best approach. I really do.
Melina said, I definitely have more confidence now in my sleep after learning so much. Yep, that's it. Learning. That's the key. Perfect. Let's go back here.
100%.
So that was Karan. Okay, so two more. So this is from Young. Came in a few days ago. Complex insomnia battle. And so what I highlight here is the title of the email. Hello, I've been listening to your Ask Daniel podcast and thought I'd reach out. For the past 1 year, I've had really severe insomnia, on average only sleeping maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, and some nights going completely sleepless. I've always been a good sleeper prior to this. I've always dealt with general anxiety since my early 20s. I'm now 38, but it has never affected my sleep. I started getting nightly migraines anytime I lie down in any position shortly before my insomnia started. As part of my medical workup, I had an MRI that was normal. I also had a sleep study, showed very mild sleep apnea, HI 5.3. I practice good sleep hygiene. I live a healthy lifestyle, exercise every day, no caffeine, no alcohol, no drugs. However, regardless of how little I slept the previous night or nights, I never tend to get drowsy or sleepy very much during the day, but I feel mentally really down and discouraged after a bad night of sleep and sometimes have some panic attack symptoms. I've been trying to incorporate a sleep restriction as part of CBTI to improve my sleep, but I haven't had success to date. I find that if I happen to get drowsy, sleepy prior to my sleep restriction time and fight off sleep to make it to my designated sleep restriction bedtime, I lose that sleepy feeling and have a bad night with little to no sleep. Yet, if I go to bed when I initially feel drowsy, I wake up after about 2 hours or so and can't fall back asleep for the rest of the night. I started off with a 6-hour bed sleep restriction time, but it hasn't been helping. I also found that most of the sedating type of prescription medications don't really work well for me and makes my anxiety worse rather than better. Any suggestions or thoughts on how to improve sleep, as my situation is complicated with the added health conditions of migraines, making it difficult to be comfortable in bed, and maybe sleep apnea playing a part, as well as hyperarousal and anxiety? Thanks. All right, so there's fairly many
going on
things there that we should talk about. I guess I can ask you, Michael, like just like big picture, some thoughts that come to mind, or
well, like right off the bat, he indicated it's been 1 year, so I'm just sort of curious, like, did anything happen right at that moment? The migraines are a little, difficult. That's obviously no medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if it's tied to. I mean, he has mild sleep apnea.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it like worse on his back? And does he spend a lot of time sleeping on his back? I'd sort of ask a couple more questions about that, but I don't know. HI of 5, that's sort of, really borderline. As far as the insomnia goes, getting sleepy during the day and then pushing himself to get to the start of his sleep window and then going to bed and has trouble sleeping versus falling asleep a couple hours before the window, kind of like maybe as a dozing, napping kind of thing, and then sleeping a little bit and then waking up and being awake for a while. Is that the pattern that I'm...
Yeah, I think it was either kind of fight off sleep until the sleep window starts and then just feeling alert, or like actually when he or she, I don't know, or they, we can say they.
Yeah, they. Yeah, sorry. I'm old.
When they, no. Yeah. They are, reach that sleep window and fall asleep, then wake up 2 hours later, and then not getting so much more sleep after that.
Yeah. I guess I would ask, I don't know if they commented on what time they get up in the morning, if that's really consistent or if that's also variable. The more I'm just I have all these crazy fun sayings. One of my favorite is good sleep starts in the morning. I like to say that to people because that's your anchor. That's your 24-hour event that happens. Once every 24 hours, you get up for the day and your brain changes a lot when that happens. And so really you control that. You completely control it. We talked previously about not being able to control when you fall asleep. You 100% control when you're done. Like when you're done for the day. That doesn't mean you're still asleep. You may be awake. You may be like reading on the couch. You may be kind of dozing off in bed. It doesn't matter. At a certain point, every 24 hours, you can just get light on, get out of bed, get your shower, coffee, breakfast, TV, whatever. You can get your day started. And that's a really like multi-behavioral kind of event that I think really should be consistent. And I don't know if they commented on that. I'm trying to remember if they said anything
Not
about
really.
it.
I think
They
they
just
just
said they had
said
a
like
window.
6 hour window, but
Yeah. So I
but
would ask, I would just confirm that that was being adhered to, like the morning side of the window. Um, and then from there, you know, I don't know, but I was kind of curious what you thought. Is the migraine thing, is that a common thing? I'm not
I
too
think, well,
familiar.
first of all, actually, to Young here, I want to say that as I like to point out, oftentimes is that there's nothing unusual or strange or weird that I haven't heard many times before in this email. So I think that's always good for everyone to know that, you know, the first step is, I think, always is like understanding, demystifying, and actually the first step actually to starting to be able to even like learn and educate yourself is to get to a point where you don't think something weird and bizarre and strange is happening.
Right.
So I just want to start off with, there's nothing unusual or strange I've read in this message. Now, with that said, it sounded like, you know, Young has had insomnia only 1 year, but has had general anxiety since the early 20s. And I think two important things I think is one, if you have a tendency towards anxiety, then you are predisposed towards having insomnia. So that also serves to demystify it. You know, like if you've always had trouble with anxiety, you're more likely to at some point also have trouble sleeping. But secondly, it doesn't mean you have to. You know, you've had some problems with anxiety for years and years, but you slept well. So there's no reason whatsoever to believe that you can't sleep well again now, even if you have anxiety. So, but it sounded like there was a little bit of a trigger here. Like I started getting nightly migraines anytime I lie down shortly before my insomnia started. So it seems like that was what we call the precipitating event here.
Yeah.
It was migraines as part of laying down, and probably, you know, those migraines triggered some what we call sleep disturbance. Your sleep was not good because you had the migraines, but then the kind of like the moment happened when your brain went, oh, there's something wrong here. I'm not sleeping much, and instead of having the actual trigger of migraine that was causing sleep disruption, now was what Mike usually says, like this is when insomnia took a life of its own. Like part of your brain became like, oh, you can't sleep, something is wrong, and now the circle is going. The circle of you have trouble sleeping, and you don't understand why. You become confused. You try things to sleep more, and then that builds more pressure to sleep, more anxiety. You sleep less, and you try more things, etc., etc. So now, kind of, this is why insomnia has now become like a self-driven entity. And then I wanted to say, secondly, like going over this again, I practice good sleep hygiene. Whenever I read that, you know, I become very concerned actually, because sleep hygiene, I know you and I have a little bit different approaches on that, but I think in my mind, the problem with sleep hygiene is that it implies that sleep is controllable. You know, sleep hygiene is generally like, you know, keep the temperature at this, keep the noise level low, do this, do that, do these 11 things. And the implication is that if you do these 11 things, you'll sleep well. But in reality, you can't control sleep. So when you do things with the intent of trying to sleep more, you get further down the rabbit hole, because it seems like, oh, the light change didn't help. Okay, I've got to change the temperature. That didn't help either. Or something must really be wrong. So it just sets you off, you know? And the same, and also here we read of like, I live a very healthy lifestyle. I exercise, no caffeine, no alcohol, drugs. And you know, Mike, you've heard this so many times before. You heard this story before. Somebody who has insomnia almost always leads a healthy lifestyle, because people tend to be health conscious, you know, which is great. Generally speaking, it's great to be out exercising, taking care of health. Of
course it is. Yeah.
But when it comes to sleep, that so often backfires. It is like, you know, you're health conscious, so you want to take care of your health. You want to sleep well. You want to do everything. And that desire, that inclination, that like problem solving habit sets you up, because insomnia is like everything is upside down. The more you try, the less you get.
It's almost like a healthy lifestyle. It amplifies that precipitating event. You know, it's like maybe the migraine experience the first time. Okay, here's a healthy person. Now something unhealthy is happening to them, the migraine, and it affects their sleep. And so they're immediately like down the road of trying things like, oh, what am I doing? I'm healthy, but there must be something I'm missing, and then like you were saying, they're trying this, they're trying that, and that just blows the whole thing up into a chronic experience. So you have to just take a step back from your sleep, keep living healthy. That's fantastic, of course. No one would say don't. If there's any obvious environmental problems with your sleeping environment, it's common sense. That's all sleep hygiene is. It's common sense. It's like, don't sleep near a furnace in the summertime. I mean, of course you're not going to sleep well, right? Don't chug 5 gallons of water before you go to bed. You're going to be able to go to the bathroom 8 times during the night. Like, these are common sense things. I'm being kind of silly to make a point, but it's I think what you said, Daniel, is true. Like, a lot of people with chronic insomnia, they generally are healthy. I found a lot of them, take a few supplements, which I don't understand. As I'm not a doctor, so they're taken for other things, not for sleep. But you can tell that they're trying to live healthily and supplement their nutrition and their exercise and all that, and all that's great. But then when a precipitating event happens, that is just kind of like life, like life happens, right? The phone rings in the middle of the night and there's an emergency and you don't sleep the rest of the night. And the next night, you're kind of thinking about it. And then next thing you know, you're thinking about your sleep all the time because you haven't had much sleep. So you have to, someone, with this kind of predisposition to that, and a little precipitating event can sometimes kind of just blow up really quick. Whereas someone who doesn't have as much of a predisposition, maybe the precipitating event doesn't blow things up as quickly. They kind of shrug it off. They kind of, they don't link that with their sleep. That's the key. I think it's just like a separate thing, like the migraine thing. It's just like a separate, keep it separate. It's just another thing to just address during the day.
Very well. So let's see. I think there were some important things there, and we already, if tuning in here, Young, like we've already kind of covered this part. I never tend to get like Young has the same thing really that we talked about earlier, which was this like the sleepiness seems to go away, dissipate, and we've already talked about how that's actually not what happens. It's more that when you get hyper aroused or anxious, that drowns out the sleepiness, so it doesn't seem like it's there. And I've been trying to incorporate sleep restriction, but I haven't had any success to date. And that, that again goes back to effort on my thinking is like, okay, if you're spending less time in bed and you're trying to make that make you sleep, then it's going to backfire. So when you spending less time in bed, I think it's, more and more, let me put it that way, more and more, I think the building sleep drive is not as important at all as the act of trying less to sleep. I really think the act of like spending less time in bed is really good when that becomes of a psychological step away from trying. I'm trying less to sleep. That's the goal. That's the goal of it, And when you're spending less time in bed and trying to sleep more, it becomes it goes the other way.
Right.
So
and I was just going to little
absolutely.
On that. I think when you line up both of those, the lack of effort with a natural, strong homeostatic drive, that's the sweet spot. That's when your chances of success are going to be the greatest. For sure.
So I think in summary here for Young is like, I hope you took a lot out from this discussion, and that helps you feel that it is less mystery. And I think you're still in the set it stage. I think you should learn more and educate yourself more. And when there's absolutely no mystery, then you can go on and just kind of like leave the whole insomnia thing. But I think you're still definitely in like, just learn more and things will really get better there. Mm-hmm. We have a comment here from Karan. Best wishes from the UK. Thanks so much, Karan.
Hi, Karan.
All right, so we have our last question, and this is from Tarik, and the title is, I suffer from a weird and uncommon insomnia. Hi, Daniel. It's been 3 months since I suffered from chronic insomnia. In the beginning, it was just a fear of not sleeping, but recently it develops to something much worse. I'm aware of myself. I wait for the moment of falling asleep to come. I can't distract my mind from it. I think about sleep and how it happens 24/7 or 24/24. And I think this problem is perpetuating my insomnia. I don't think in naps since April. I think that I developed a condition called somnophobia, fear of falling asleep, because whenever I close my eyes or see someone sleeping, my heart beats fast and I sweat too much as if I was running. What can I do to overcome this insomnia? It's made me depressed and irritable. I really want it to end. My eyes hurt me too much because of this lack of sleep. So I can start off here, Mike, and I want to say, first of all, Tarik and everyone else, of course, thanks so much for sending questions. Um, I don't know how long you've been on this channel, Tarik, but it's when I saw this headline, I thought my thoughts went in the direction of this is actually so close to something I say all the time, which is I always say it is so important that you don't think of your insomnia as weird and uncommon. And then I got this email saying I suffer from weird and uncommon insomnia. That was like really, that really struck me. And so let's start. So Tarik, you said that it was just a fear of not sleeping. That's for most people, that's how it starts, right? Something happens, you lose control of sleep, and then you fear losing sleep more. You try to do things to sleep more, and then you kind of gets out of control. And then now what you're describing is that you have this feeling like the moment you're about to sleep, you can't distract you kind of become aware of it, and you're almost afraid of that moment when you're about to sleep because you suddenly become aware of it. And starting there, I want to say that's actually not that uncommon, and that's very important because again, the more you think is weird and uncommon, the harder it becomes to get past it. So on this channel, it was actually this episode where I talked to someone as a podcast guest. His name is Alex, where we had a real long discussion about it. And after that, a lot of people were like, I have the same thing. And even in clinic, some people were like, yeah, I have that too, which is kind of like a hypnic jerk. You're about to fall asleep and you jerk, but instead it's like you're about to fall asleep and you become aware of falling asleep. And there's nothing strange about that. It's just exactly what it is. It's just usually you don't pay attention to your sleep, so you kind of drift off into sleep, and in the morning you don't think about the moment when you fall asleep, but you can become aware of that moment where you're about to fall asleep. And when you are in this, like, you have had trouble sleeping, you think a lot about your sleep, you're kind of obsessing about it, then that moment when you become aware of falling asleep can be really scary and frightening. And then weirdly you become afraid of falling asleep. But I think it's super important to think of these, like the hypnic jerks or these events, they're kind of like a micro version of insomnia, meaning the more you try to figure them out and try to do things to stop them and like think about them, the more you have, and the more you think of them as, oh, that's normal. This awareness is it's just a process of falling asleep. I just pay more attention to it than other people. I don't need to do anything to prevent it, to stop it. Just let it be, and that will pass, and you'll transition into sleep. And I also want to add that the other things we read about here, I forgot to share the screen. There it is, add to stream. Whenever I close my eyes and see someone sleeping, my heart beats fast. That seems to me pretty clear that that triggers the thought of like, I can't sleep, what's going on, etc. It triggers the insomnia thoughts, it sounds like. And what can I do to overcome this insomnia? I think in your case too, Tarik here, if you had said that this had been going on for like a week, I would have said almost like, forget about the whole thing. Just like do what you usually do and like it'll be fine. But it's been 3 months now, so I think you probably are also in this what I call steady stage. I think you just have to start learning. You just have to use this channel and educate yourself and understand what is insomnia. Why do we have it? Listen to the episodes here, and when it becomes clear to you that, oh, I understand it, nothing is weird, nothing is strange, it is actually, I actually have normal garden variety insomnia, then the hyperarousal will go and you feel much better.
Yeah, exactly. I think also, and I don't know if, is it Terry? Was that the name? I think
Tarik.
Tarik, sorry. I don't think Tarik commented on how they feel. Well, or not how they feel during the day, but whether their fear is actually a fear of how they're going to feel during the day, not necessarily a fear of not sleeping. That seems to be kind of common. You know, you ask someone with insomnia, and it's like ultimately what they're really concerned about is, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to, you know, all these horrible things going to happen to me during the day? Am I going to get some terrible disease? All this kind of stuff. So I would encourage Tarik to evaluate their day. Like, how is your day? Are you out there? Are you enjoying stuff? Are you doing the best you can? All this kind of stuff, and disassociate it a bit with the night. I would also say if you're tracking your sleep, I would say don't do that. You know, get the Fitbit off your wrist. You don't need to know. And then I would also maybe sprinkle in a little, like, when you're dozing off, when you're drifting off, you know, are you on your back, and could your airway be blocking a little bit, like a little mild sleep apnea? There's reports of, like, down in Australia, these guys have done these where, like, drifting off with sleep apnea can cause like a startle awakening, which then kind of manifests as insomnia. But it may be, like, I don't know, starting off on your side tends to, I found, that's just anecdotal, I found that's helped a lot of my clients. Like, if I hear any of that kind of startle awakening, I would ask, are you on your back? And if they say yes, and then if it's comfortable to try their side, I mean, you know, it's just in case there's any kind of like sleep apnea thing going on. It can help with that initiation of sleep. If your homeostatic drive is strong and all that, you know, it's a simple thing to rule out, because sleep apnea is so very common that I think it's always worth kind of considering. But I didn't hear any comments about it. So if Tarik thinks that might be an issue, that's something to just try.
100%. All right, so that's it. I think that was very good. I think we'll stick to maybe 3 or 4 emails and whatnot. So what are you planning to do this weekend?
Well, we're doing a little bit of a remodel in part of our house, so we have like people coming and going, and everything's kind of shuffled around. If I moved my camera around this room, you'd be horrified. There's like boxes on either side of me. There's boxes, just like, you know. So we're doing that, and but it's beautiful weather here in Oregon right now, so we're all trying to get outside and enjoy it.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, same thing here. Yeah, just gonna take the kids out and maybe bike or kayak or something.
Yeah, fantastic. Great.
All right. Well, thanks everyone, and see you soon.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you.